Well, welcome, Patricia. And I am absolutely delighted to be speaking with you today. Patricia, it's really quite an honour to have you here on the show. For those who don't know you, so Patricia is widely recognised as one of the world's foremost experts on blended families. You've authored two of the most helpful books on step families out there, Surviving and Thriving in Step Family Relationships, and also the Step Family Handbook. And I know you bring more than 40 years of clinical experience in helping step families all over the world. So where on earth do we start here, Patricia? Let's start with, could you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you down this path to specialisation in step families?
Well, my first marriage was to a man who had a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old when I met him. And then a few years later, I needed to do a dissertation. I was in a graduate clinical program. And lucky me, they didn't make me do a statistics dissertation because I absolutely stink at numbers. It was what's called a qualitative dissertation, where I could interview people. And I noticed that in my own step family that things had changed. And it wasn't just that the kids had gone from 5 to 9 and 9 to 13, but that something developmental had shifted. So I interviewed step parents, and my dissertation was on stages of development and becoming a step parent. And I got hooked. And I have been doing it ever since.
Oh, there you go. So it was the personal experience that coupled with that professional background as well that worked well together there.
I can tell you that at the time that I did my dissertation, you're supposed to do what's called a literature review. It was the easiest literature review in the world because at that time, which is about the late 70s, there was almost nothing written. Now it's completely, we have a huge amount of research now. Not enough clinical work, but a huge amount of research. And now if I sit on a dissertation committee, I have to help somebody sort through what to read and what not. So that's how I got into it. And now I'm in my second marriage. I was single. I had a daughter in that marriage. I was single for 10 years. And I've been with this, let's see, we've been together like 28 years, I think. I have three step kids, older step kids, seven step grandkids. My daughter now has 3 little ones. So.
Of her own. My goodness. Okay, well, today we're here to talk about the 5 major challenges you've identified that these step family structures create, and you've identified those based on your extensive research and experience. And then we'll cover off some practical tips and tricks in terms of how to tackle them. So let's dive straight in. Can you kick us off with number 1?
Well, I actually think we probably need to back up and talk about why step families are different from first-time families, because it's that difference that makes these challenges. And I call it a first-time or a first partner family. The couple has some time together to get to know each other, to build trust, to be in love, to learn that he doesn't load the dishwasher the way that I do, and to have that become a little bit ordinary. And in a first-time family, the child enters the adult's already established relationship. And very important for our story, children in a first-time family enter hardwired for what we call attachment to both their parents and vice versa. And the next child and the next enter that already existing network of connection and caring, and also values and how we do things. We eat grape nuts for breakfast. You guys, I don't know if you have grape nuts in Australia. It's
not that I know of.
Boring whole wheat cereal.
Oh, okay.
I raised my daughter on. That's who we are. When there's a divorce, we now have 2 single parent families, at least mostly in the United States. And the new person, with or without kids, comes in as an outsider to an already established parent-child relationship. The couple relationship and the step-parent, step-child relationship are much newer, and the parent-child relationship is pre-existing. That hardwired attachment is there, and all those layers of how we do things, and another parent in another household. So that's how step families are different. And that structure makes 5 challenges. And now to
Yes.
answer your question, the first challenge is step parents are stuck outsiders and parents are stuck insiders. Meaning, I'm the parent, you're the step parent. My daughter gets off the bus and she made the soccer team or she did not make the soccer team.
Mm-hmm.
Now, step parents are very important to children, but when a child has something that they need to just bring to someone, it's their parent usually. So she gets off the bus, and just before she gets off the bus, you got a moment with me, and the two of us are talking, and my daughter bursts in and says, "Mommy, mommy, mommy!" And I'm a good mommy, so what do? I turn towards my daughter, and I have turned away from you. She is not coming towards you; she is coming towards me, and you are now left out.
Mm.
And that's hard. We are not wired for that. We are wired for, if you care about me, you turn towards me. But in a step family, every time a child enters a room or the conversation, the parent has that hardwired attachment and shared connection. And the child needs the parent, usually, not the step parent. So the step parents are left out a lot. And left out feels rejected, invisible, not a good feeling. Now, parents are stuck insiders. Later, we have a moment alone, and you say, but if you say it sweetly, you say, "Sweetie, that was hard for me." What was hard for you? When your daughter came home, what was hard about that? She didn't even talk to me. Oh, what's your
Yeah.
problem? She's my kid. And now you're left out again. Right? Now, if you
Yeah.
handle it badly, you're going to say, "You did it again." Real easy
Yeah.
to do. You did it again. And how defensive am I going to be? So, stuck insiders are, if I turn to my kid, my sweetheart is unhappy. If I didn't turn to my kid and I told my daughter to wait, 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 my daughter would be unhappy. And then let's add, if I please my ex spouse and keep the peace, my partner may not be pleased, and vice versa. So that's the insider outsider challenge.
That's a big one. That is
It's
a
a
big
big
one.
one, and it
It
doesn't go
is.
away.
It doesn't go away. And I think, in particular, new step parents would struggle with that one the most. Although it doesn't go away, but you get used to it as time goes by,
It
or you learn how to cope
does.
with it.
It does really help to know that
Mm,
it's the structure. It's not that you're
mm,
doing something wrong. I would have couples come back 15 or 20 years later because, I don't know, a stepkid was getting married and the tension went up or something happened, college costs. And they'd say, "Oh, you were so helpful." And I always ask what was helpful. And the step parent always says, insiders and outsiders, "I knew I wasn't crazy." And the
mm,
parent says, "I knew I wasn't failing." So
yes,
it is helpful to know it's normal. However, it's hard. What do you do?
definitely. No, there's all
So,
sorts of emotions going on there and different needs from all the different stakeholders in that scenario that you painted.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there are a couple of concrete things that help. One thing that's a little bit non intuitive is one to one time. Step families really do need to spend time together. It's a new collection of people, and we've got to build a sense of ourselves. And so, step families need to spend time together doing fun things. However, every time the whole family is together, this insider outsider thing is smack in your face. So, really important to carve out one to one time. In a minute, we're going to talk about kids. It's really important for kids also, and for
Yes.
step parents and stepchildren. But you need some time if you're the step parent where you've got your sweetie's attention, and your sweetie, if I'm the insider, I need to know there's a time I can turn to my sweetie without worrying about my kid. And sometimes it's even tiny moments in the morning before the kids get up, or making sure we have a really good hug before we go to sleep. Um, One-to-one time really helps a
Yeah.
lot.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. So important for the couple relationship. So let's move on then to number 2 and talk about the kids. So
the second challenge is that step families are very different from first-time families for children. For children in step families often struggle with losses, loyalty binds, and change. So loss. Well, first of all, of course, we have the loss of divorce. But study after study has told us that when parents recouple, kids lose significant time and attention from their parents. And that's because adults are just as nuts when they fall in love as any adolescent. They're texting at dinner, they're texting while they're supposedly doing homework. And then when the new partner moves in or begins to hang around more, again, if the parent is going to turn to their partner, they are turning away from their kid.
yes.
In a first-time family, if I turn to my sweetie, as long as we're not all over each other, my kid feels connected. And that partner is connected to my kid. This partner isn't connected to my kid, even if they're very friendly. So, kids will often say, I miss my daddy. It used to be just us. So there's the loss of a one-to-one real connection with mom or dad at a time of a huge change when children especially need parental connection. And here's the other thing: the adults are thrilled, and here's a kid saying, "I hate her." And now what the kid needs is, "Oh, sweetie, you're having a tough time." But how easy for me to say, but she's a nice person.
Yeah.
Or even worse, I don't ever want to hear you say that again.
Yeah.
So exactly what kids most need from parents is somewhat non-intuitive. Parents really have to. It helps to know something because you don't have the experience. It helps to learn. Listening to podcasts like this, that your kid may be struggling and feeling things that you're not feeling. And if you can turn and open your heart to that, that's what will help kids. The best medicine for kids is grown-ups who get it. And that ain't
Yes.
easy for a parent. When your kid is hurting because of something you did, that's a challenge. So that's losses. And then, of course, there are the losses of um, child position. My husband had 2 sons and a daughter. His daughter was the third born, the very much wanted girl, the only girl. And I come along with a daughter. 27 years later, I think it's still hard for my stepdaughter. A huge loss for her of being the special one. Um, and then, of course, there are all the losses of moving. But let's go on to loyalty binds. Loyalty
Yeah.
bind is if I care about my step parent, I'm disloyal to my parent. If I care about my stepmom, I'm disloyal to my mom. If I care about my stepdad, I'm disloyal to my dad. Um, and loyalty binds seem to be almost genetic in our culture. There are cultures that are much more supportive, accepting of everybody in the village parents the kid. But our culture is very much you have two parents and kids. So it's kids are more likely to feel a loyalty bind in our culture than in some others. Um,
Interesting.
and when a parent recouples, it can be very hard for the other parent. I mean, who grew up being a parent expecting to have to share my kids with somebody I did not choose and I cannot supervise, who they might love more than me? So,
Yeah.
if that other parent is having a hard time, that can intensify the loyalty bind for kids. So, really important for kids, the research is kids do best when they have positive relationships with both mom and dad, both mom and stepmom, both dad and stepdad. It's a gay relationship with all of the parents. That's when kids do best. And if your ex is bad mouthing, don't you participate. Don't you can say things like, "Gee, that must be hard to hear. That must be confusing," but not, "She's a liar."
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's super helpful advice. I think the role play of sorts that you offered up earlier, where you suggested saying, just acknowledging to the child that must be really hard for you,
Yes.
is a really important takeaway for those listening, because ordinarily it can be very easy to react off the cuff or in the moment. I assume if you're the biological parent or the step parent, but for either the biological parent or the step parent to be able to acknowledge, hey, this looks like
This
it's
must be
really hard
tough.
for you, I think is a really
Yeah.
nice way to.
It's a really good way through. Mommy says, "You're a bitch." Well, now that's a little hard for a stepmom to hear. But if you can take a breath and say, "Boy, that must be confusing."
Mm,
Uh, uh, Kids will do better.
yeah, that's such good advice.
The other thing that I tell stepmoms especially like to show that they really love their stepkids. If you're in the same, if you're at a basketball game or a dance concert with your kid's mom, your stepkid's mom, and that mom is having a hard time, this is not the time to show that you love your stepkids. A triggered other ex spouse is toxic for everybody. In your very best self interest, you step back and let that parent step forward. And it may be painful. You may need some extra hugs from your partner later or ahead. Uh, but better for everybody if your stepkid's other parent is not jealous of you.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So so that was number.
Change.
Oh,
We didn't do
change.
change.
Yes.
Uh, it turns as the rate of change goes up, kids' well being goes down. And it turns out that the change of becoming a step family for many kids is more challenging and takes
Mm,
longer than divorce. And we think it's probably because it's change on top of change. Um, uh, and remember, the adults are thrilled. The
yeah.
adults want to charge ahead. And it's almost always, I would say almost always, not always, but often, um, way too fast for kids.
Mm,
Kids need to go one step at a time. And kids need a lot more notice than grown-ups often give them. My co-author for the Step Family Handbook, Karen Bennell, says, "We're going to have a new puppy as a good surprise for a child. Janie's coming over for the night is not a good surprise often. And Janie and I are moving in together next week. That's not a good surprise for children. Children need a lot more information about, we're going to get married in 3 months, and here's what will change, and here's what will not change. I will still
mm,
be daddy. She will still be mommy. This will be somebody new." Um,
yes.
at the Step Family Handbook, which is there are two books, Surviving and Thriving in Step Family Relationships, is focused entirely on step families and was written for both people in step families and people who want to help. So there's a lot of good, rich clinical work in it. The Step Family Handbook, it was written for the public. It starts, the subtitle is From Dating to Getting Serious to Forming a Blended Family. So it starts earlier. It has some good step-by-step ideas of how do you introduce kids in a new couple. So that's challenge number 2. And
Fantastic.
again, let's talk about one-to-one time.
Yes.
Really important for parent. Our first time family map is the couple is the center of the family, and if the couple's okay, the kids are okay. This is somewhat true in first time families. In step families, it's both and. We need the couple to be okay, and we need the parent child to be okay. And the couple does need a lot of nurturing because it's new and being pulled apart. But very, very close couple relationships in step families, kids actually don't do as well. And we think that's because the parent is being pulled too far away from that one to one time. So, one to one time for parents and children and for the couple,
Mm.
both makes a big difference.
What about for the step parent and the stepchild, Patricia? Would you recommend that?
That's actually the next challenge.
Oh,
Yes, step
okay.
parents and stepchildren also need time alone together, because every time the parent is in the room, that stronger relationship trumps the words ruined, is stronger, and the step parent ends up as an outsider. So step parents and stepchildren also need time alone together. And that actually pulls us right into the third challenge. Shall we just go there?
Yeah, let's do it.
The third challenge, the way I'm saying it now, is that parenting and step parenting are very different, and they are both important. So we've talked about parenting. Parents have that attachment to their kids. Step parents don't have it. And let's say you've got a kid in a loyalty bind. Mom is really complaining about stepmom. That kid's not going to be very available to a step parent, to the warmest step parent. So on this one, what I'm going to start with is what works and what doesn't, because we have a lot of research about what works. It is non-intuitive, and it is so important. So here's the first most important, one of the most important things. Step parents often expect to step into discipline. I'm the adult in the house. That makes sense. It turns out the research is very clear, and we now have several decades of research. Parents need to retain the disciplinary role, the limit setting role,
Yes.
until or unless stepchildren feel they have a trusting, caring relationship with their step parent. So that means what we tell step parents is your job is to focus on, I call it connection, not correction. You want to lead with warmth, not control. You want to get to know your stepkids, and here's where that one-to-one time comes in. Your stepkid likes to bake, likes chocolate cakes. So teach him how to make a chocolate cake. You've got a kid, a really, really shy 12-year-old kid, in a case I was involved with recently, 12-year-old boy. Well, his stepmom, he was a basketball player, and his stepmom was captain of her high school basketball team. This kid could barely look at this woman, but they could play basketball together. And that's how they started, playing basketball, shooting baskets. That was easy for this kid and easy for the stepmom. That's the first and probably most important. The other thing, this is recent research. It turns out there's a range of step parent roles that work, ranging from very close parent-like, much more likely if kids are 8 and under, to academically focused. Big percentage of both stepmothers and stepfathers are real involved with homework and academics, to fairly casual but warm talking about sports or school, playing games together. Maybe stepmom drives you to dance and you play Taylor Swift. All three of those, and they're very different. All three of those are connected to good well-being in kids.
Interesting.
What's not connected is the very worst for children is something called authoritarian parenting. Authoritarian is you will do this or else. And absence, just not connected. Although the research is when the step parent is somewhat absent, inactive, and disconnected, often the whole family is disconnected. The couple is disconnected. The parent and child are disconnected. And the child is not well connected to the parent in the other house. So that may be sort of in a whole context of disconnection. But all three of those very different step-parent roles are very positive for kids. But here's the challenge. Step-parents all over the world want more structure and limits for their stepkids. Almost, I'd say about 85%. Parents all over the world want more love and understanding for their kids. So the kid leaves a mess, and the parent says, the kid goes in and makes herself a sandwich. And she leaves mayonnaise, she leaves the mayonnaise out. She leaves, she makes a mess and she leaves the dishes in the sink. Now, the parent is saying, great, she made her own sandwich. I'm thrilled. The step parent walks in the kitchen and it's a mess. And how much harder if the kid who made the mess is a kid who barely can speak to me? Much, much harder. So that pushes step parents and parents into kind of opposite corners, where it is easy for the step parent to want more limits and the parent to want fewer limits. And if it goes well, step parents can often help parents firm up. My husband would say, honey, you just let her get away with murder. And, you just went out and bought her this and this because she forgot that and that. And you didn't teach her to not forget that and that. And oh, yeah, you're right. He's helping me firm up. And I'm saying, listen, my kid has ADD. I have ADD, meaning we both forget things a lot. So, I just go out and get it. It's easier. So for him to understand where she's coming from, he hated that she did her homework in the kitchen.
Yeah.
My kid has learning disabilities. She needed basically one-to-one help the whole time she's doing homework. Why doesn't she go upstairs? She can't. Mm-hmm. Well, finally, my husband said, what if the books don't stay out there for 8 hours? What if after the books are out there for 2 hours, she puts them away? I'll build her shelves. So he's helped me firm up. I'm saying to my kid, okay, honey, it's been 3 hours. Let's put these away. And I'm helping him soften up. That works well. Mm-hmm. Where it doesn't work well, I call that a collaborative cha-cha. Where it doesn't work well is the step parent says, your kid is getting away with murder. And the parent says, what's your problem? She's just being a kid. The step parent gets more frustrated, gets more pushy. The parent gets more protective. I call it the polarization polka. It pulls step parents into that authoritarian, you will clean up this mess right now. And it pulls parents into, throwing their hands up. What kids need from their parents, it's called authoritative parenting. Warm, empathic, connected, and moderately firm. You need to clean these dishes up. I know you don't feel like it. Come on. Need you to get it done, or I can't let you, I can't let you make sandwiches if you don't clean up. So that doing that challenge well, this step parenting challenge, is partly that what works is not out in people's hands. That's why I'm always glad to do things like this. And the second is that the structure pulls step parents into more irritation and parents into more protectiveness. And how do you slow down and just really listen to each other?
Yeah. It's fascinating thinking about the way that the parent and the step parent can help each other out in the ways that you described. And it makes perfect sense. The image you painted of your daughter with the book sprawled out over the kitchen bench, and that's infuriating the stepdad, and it's coming to some sort of happy medium, but doing that in a gentle way.
In a way that you're really hearing each other.
That's right.
It's a challenge. Now, sometimes it's reversed. Every now and then the parent is the more authoritarian, and the step parent is the more authoritative or sort of leading with warmth. Actually, my husband and I are reversed in that way with his kids. Okay. And boy, did that get me in with his middle son. Because he's coming down hard on my poor middle stepson who'd done something stupid, I don't know what. And I'm finally saying, honey, he's 16. It's not, give him a break. And I'll tell you, I think that I remember my stepson looking at me and saying, oh, thank you. The research calls that siding, meaning you side with your stepkid.
Okay.
Against the parent. It is one way that step parents can sometimes make a connection when there wasn't one.
Yes. And is that usually a result of the parenting style of the step parent? Like, like in your case?
That is my parenting style. I tend to err towards permissiveness. I'm almost always leading. It's easier for me to lead with warmth, and it's easier for my husband to lead with limits. We are a great pair.
Yeah.
I happen to have my 19-year-old step grandson living with us, and he's into coming down hard, and I'm into, oh, no, wait a minute. He's 19. Together, we are a good team.
Yeah.
It is easier to be a team around my step grandson than it was about my daughter.
Oh, well, you balance each other out.